People often ask why I work for nuclear disarmament. Maybe you're wondering the same thing. Perhaps you see it as a niche topic, perhaps an outdated one since the end of the Cold War. Perhaps you think it's idealistic to imagine a world without nuclear weapons, or that there are more pressing existential threats that deserve our attention, like climate change, pandemics, or social inequality. 10 years ago, I also wasn't aware that this is an urgent issue. I didn't realize how nuclear weapons are connected to anti-militarism, international peace and justice, and the climate. I didn't know how decades of nuclear weapons testing have caused lasting environmental damage, or how nuclear weapons have disproportionately harmed people of color, indigenous communities, and colonized peoples. And I certainly didn't have any idea about how we could get rid of nuclear weapons. That all began to change when, as an intern, I helped a group of survivors of the US bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki attend several Boston area schools to educate the next generation about the impacts of nuclear weapons. The tenacity of these survivors, many of them octogenarians, to not only survive an atomic bomb explosion, but to dedicate their lives to reliving that trauma, still inspires my profound respect and admiration. I'll never forget their appeal to me, to remember their stories, and to make sure that they were not told in vain. I had to get involved as soon as possible, so I graduated a year early to start working for a research and advocacy organization focusing on arms control, working alongside brilliant and savvy colleagues seeking to change this untenable status quo. When I found out that there would be negotiations on a new international treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons, I had to get to New York to support and report on what was happening at the United Nations. Fast forward to July 2017, when I found myself at the UN witnessing history being made. The first ever treaty banning nuclear weapons was adopted by 122 countries. Bold and strategic diplomats, partnering with civil society, including nuclear weapons survivors, dared to take on the nuclear-armed states and make their weapons illegal under international law. Powerless to stop them and refusing to engage, nuclear-armed states were reduced to holding a press conference outside the negotiating room, feebly trying to explain how their possession of weapons designed to incinerate cities guarantee international peace and security. We crossed a landmark threshold that day. Nuclear weapons joined chemical weapons, biological weapons, landmines, and cluster munitions, and became illegal under international law. The treaty also requires the country provide assistance to survivors of nuclear weapons use and testing and start to clean up contaminated environments. A few months later, the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, ICAN, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for our efforts to achieve the treaty. Setsuko Thurlow, who was 13 when a nuclear weapon destroyed her hometown of Hiroshima, accepted the Nobel Peace Prize on behalf of ICAN, alongside ICAN's executive director. In her Nobel lecture, she implored all leaders to join this treaty. She said, "When I was a 13-year-old girl, trapped in the smoldering rubble, I kept pushing, I kept moving toward the light, and I survived. Our light now is the ban treaty. To all in this hall and all listening around the world, I repeat those words that I heard called to me in the ruins of Hiroshima. Don't give up. Keep pushing. See the light? Crawl towards it." Of course, our work didn't end that day. Today, there are still more than 12,500 nuclear weapons possessed by 9 countries in the world and stationed on an additional 6 countries' territories. The risk of nuclear use remains high, and reckless rhetoric continues to accelerate it. It's easy to feel powerless when it seems like the fate of the world rests in the hands of these leaders. But that's not true. Armed with an international treaty, we have the ability to hold their feet to the fire. At ICAN, that's exactly what we're doing. More than 650 partner organizations in over 110 countries are a part of this broad and inclusive coalition working to get every country to join the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, to get rid of these awful weapons once and for all. With the support of the city and the Canton of Geneva, we're working alongside governments and other partners to ensure the full universalization and implementation of the treaty, including the provisions to support the survivors of nuclear weapons use and testing, and to clean up the environment. Nuclear weapons can affect everyone on this planet. Every country, every person has a right to demand disarmament. And there's so many ways for you to get involved and make a difference. You can get your local elected official to join the thousands who have taken ICANN's parliamentary pledge to work to get their government to join the treaty. You can get a local resolution through your town or city calling on the federal government to join. Geneva, Bern, Zurich have already passed these resolutions, joining international capitals like Paris, Washington, D.C., and Berlin. Check out if your bank or pension fund invests in nuclear weapons companies and advocate for them to pull their funds. Join a local partner organization of ICANN and take part in a protest. You can check out our website, icanw.org, for information and resources on how to join us, and follow us on social media at Nuclear Ban. Working on nuclear disarmament can seem to be depressing work. Thinking about nuclear annihilation for a living certainly doesn't sound very uplifting. And sometimes the end goal of a world without nuclear weapons seems so far away. But to tell you the truth, what would be far more depressing would be to live in a world with nuclear weapons and to do nothing about it. Ordinary people built these weapons. Ordinary people made them illegal under international law. And ordinary people can get rid of them. And we will. I hope you'll join us to make it happen. Thank you.